It's a fast-paced world full of distractions. We're multitasking our way to the end of our lives and we can't listen. We cut people off, we shut them down, and we jump in with our responses before we even think of anything else, like waiting for them to finish their sentences. My guest today has 30 years in wealth management and financial services, and is a man who knows there is a supremely crucial role for effective listening and how we communicate. Hello, and thank you for joining me on the Practical Leadership Podcast. My name is Paul Morton. I'm your host. We try to distill the hard-earned wisdom of CEOs, executives, and high performers around the world into actionable insights that you can take away and put into your leadership practices really quickly. If it's time for you to look at your own management teams and help move them from being accidental into being intentional, then in 9 short weeks, the Practical Leadership Playbook course will help you do just that. Check out the Practical Leadership Academy. And now, on with the show. Stan Slovin, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Paul. It is great to be here with you and on your podcast, and looking forward to a great conversation today.
Outstanding. Now, I did far too much injustice to a man of your history and reputation. I neglected, of course, to mention the fact that you are, in fact, the author of Better Listening, The Secret to Improving Your Professional and Personal Life. Tell me a little bit more about you. Where did you get it from?
Okay. Sure. So first of all, I am from Chicago, Illinois. So in the heart of the Midwest of the United States. So I've born and raised and went to school at a Big Ten school at the University of Illinois. I am also trained as an attorney. So we were supposed to listen a lot in law school. So that was kind of one of my early experiences. A little bit interesting. I have a couple kids, I have a couple dogs, but I also am in a rock and roll band. So I am supposed to actually be a good listener to my band members. I actually play keyboards and vocal, and we play around the Chicagoland and the Midwest area, on our spare time. So that's a little bit of my background and everything. But what it's interesting is that the wealth management industry, like 30 years ago, we were told to just tell everybody what to do and give our advice and tell everyone how to do it. And what I was realizing in my career is we were just terrible listeners. We really were not allowing people to empty their bucket or share with us what was most important to them, because we were just spewing all the time. And I relate that. So when I was looking at the book and the topic, Better Listening, I realized that the book was needed because we're just in a multitasking, attention spans are short, constantly distracted, and also that we were constantly cutting off each other. We were just cutting people off so that we were really listening to respond versus listening to understand. And that's really where the book came to be. And that was, again, not that we're not good listeners, we just could all be better listeners. And that's where it all started.
Oh, magnificent. There, you hit two of my hot button things there, Stan. You really did. Number one is the listening to respond, as in, I'm waiting for him to breathe so I can jump in with something that makes me sound really clever. And the second is what I call malpractice, right? The malpractice of, if you went to your physician, your GP, your doctor, you walked in, sat down, and the doctor said, "Here, take these pills and leave." What? Huh? What? What they're doing is they're prescribing and they're diagnosing before they're even understanding what's going wrong. They haven't listened to you. It's like a sales habit as well. People go in and they show up and they throw up and they say, "This is what you need." All problems look like nails when the only tool I've got is a hammer, and I'm beating you over the head with it before you've had a chance to say a thing. So you've got these two challenges going on. People just they're jumping in, they're not listening, they're listening. They want to make themselves seem important rather than listening for the other person, putting their heart at the middle of the conversation.
Right. And actually it's hurt. Yeah, no, it's hurtful because it's hurtful. People really feel that they're not being heard. And I'll give you two great stories. It's like when you're out with your friends dinner, okay, you have a bunch of couples and you're sitting around the table and one of the couples starts talking about this great thing that they did over the weekend. And the spouse jumps in, or the partner, whatever, jumps in and says, no, that's not really what it was. We were actually, it was on the weekday. And the person looks and says, okay, well, no, it was a Thursday night. But anyways, so we were at this big building and we were at this great party. He goes, no, it wasn't. It was a small. Finally, the person looks and says, do you want to tell the story? Like, do you want to tell the story? Because you keep
Hmm.
cutting me off. So not only sometimes do people feel that they get silent, they're embarrassed, or they don't feel that their words or their communication is important to anyone else. So one of the things that is just a key, and we'll talk about process and a couple little tips, okay, for hopefully listeners tonight, is sometimes just to pause.
Yeah.
Really take a deep breath and pause before you start hijacking a conversation. And this is really a tough one, especially for leaders. This is not just for in your personal relationship. This is for leaders in their businesses who have agendas. They have to get it out. They have to talk how they want to talk. And really, they need to first pause and take that 2-second break. And then think about what else is this conversation? Maybe you do a little bit of first reflecting. It sounds like that. You want to tell the story about that. Tell me more, clarify. And then we'll throw in the big topic, the big elephant in the room, empathy, which people really do not have in their listening skills. And that is the key of turning around from a non-good communication to a more impactful conversation, a meaningful dialogue, or an important discussion by adding some of those layers. So, that's a great story. The restaurant. The other one, which I love, is, hey, I just went to London, right? We're in
Hey.
England, okay? I just went to London and we were in this great restaurant, and they're like, oh my God, let me tell you, we were in London also last thing. Like, we went to this, and you're like, wait a minute, time out. You just cut me off. I didn't even have a chance to talk. And you're telling me about your trip or your car you just bought or your restaurant you just went to, when in reality, you want to let the other person share, because they may have something important to say. They may have a good conversation to start, and really you don't have to hijack all the time or take over. So those are a couple personal situations that I find that where if you pause first, maybe you reflect a little bit, maybe you clarify, you ask the person to tell a little bit more or expand, and then we throw a little empathy in there. That's a really helpful conversation improver.
There's a challenge, I think, when people are of the hijacking nature, that you can think that they're narcissistic and it's all about them. Oh no, I have to tell you about me, me. And actually, sometimes, yeah, maybe a little bit. I think more often than not, it's insecurity. It's a quite, it's an insecure thing. Is it,
How so? When you say when you say insecure, I'm curious about
hmm.
that. Why?
Well, no, you're curious about it. Well, no, I'm more curious than you. Right?
Okay.
Right? So I need to be listened to. I need to
Ah,
be listened to. I'm concerned that this other person, you can look at it a bit, is it jealousy? I don't think so. Sometimes, yeah. But because it just is reframing how you approach these more challenging individuals, because a lot of our job is to try and coach or to help these interruptors stop doing it. And the position, the posture you can take is one is slap them down and say, stop doing that, it's rude or it's whatever. But if you reframe it slightly into you're thinking the other person is not doing it to be rude, is not doing it from a particularly bad place. They're doing it from a position of insecurity. They're not confident. They're not comfortable with the way that conversations go. They don't have the skills. They don't have the security in themselves to
and
build
they, and
those
they may not and
relationships.
they may not even have the proper tips, because I get this question all the time: is listening a learned thing, or is it like just natural? Okay, and the answer actually is a little bit of both. So the history behind it and some of the research shows that we've had this problem since school. When you were at school and the teacher says, you failed your test because you didn't listen to directions. Okay, and then you go on to your first job, and all of a sudden you're not getting the project, and the person comes back and says, you're not really doing what we're trying to accomplish here in this job, because I don't think you really heard the directions. So the listening has kind of followed us. When we were a kid at our table, I remember like my parents like, listen, don't talk until you're talked to. Okay, it's like, so you really in a young phase, you would think that you would improve, and we only actually get worse. Larry King, a great interviewer, okay, a great interviewer, used to say that I remind myself every day that nothing I say this day, okay, nothing I say this day will teach me anything. So as long as I'm not going to learn from me talking, I might as well listen a little bit more. And it's such an interesting concept, because when you are only repeating, what you already know, then you're not listening. You're just kind of repeating and you're just kind of talking. So sometimes, listening, okay, better listening opens up the dialogue to finding out what, is important. I'll give you a great example. Leaders, when they have projects and they give assignments, well, employees will come back with feedback, but they'll sometimes get cut off or they'll get short, winded, or they'll just not even be listened to. Well, this hurts in an employment setting because people want to, they want to strengthen the collaboration. They want to know that their opinion, okay, in a work environment is actually valued. They want to know that they're being heard. So when people leave companies, one of the biggest reasons when they do these surveys and these exit strategies is I wasn't being validated. I wasn't being heard. No one really even cared about my opinion. And to be honest with you, when I was trying to, I didn't really feel that people were listening to what I was trying to do to help. So it's like an eye opener really for in both the work environment and at home. I mean, Paul, here's a great one. You come home, right, and your spouse sits and goes, "Okay, I just had the worst day. I had a horrible day at work, a problem with my friend, and the kids are like this." And what do the guys do? Okay, sometimes or whoever the person, they throw on their super cape. They go, "Okay, let me solve it. Let me
Yeah.
solve your problem."
Yeah.
And they're called super solvers.
Yeah.
When in reality, you and I know this, and our listeners know this. They just wanted to vent.
Yeah.
They just wanted to be heard. But yet we are so
Validated. Mm.
validated. Yes, validated. But they want to be heard so much so, and they're trying that sometimes a great solution, if this happens to you ever in the future, where someone is venting or sharing or trying to tell you that they're having a time, before you respond and try to solve their problem, you might want to even ask them, "Hey, listen, there's a lot going on in this conversation. Do you want me to just listen and kind of hear what's going on, or would you like my opinion, of what's happening and maybe help you?"
That's quite powerful. That statement. I mean, increasingly in my leadership management human practice, I'm finding that that sort of transparency, that sort of honesty, the meta element is really quite, it's like a pattern disruptor. It's like,
Mm,
you, okay, yeah, yeah, I just listen, you know? There's a lovely example. You said you've got kids there, and you think when a baby is crying and dad picks up the baby, right? You don't pick it up in silence. You pick up the baby crying, you go, whoa, 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 shoo, 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 shoo. And your voice goes up, 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 and quietens it down. So what you're doing is you're pacing it. You're matching the position, the noise, the level, the emotion, whatever's going on with the other person, and then you're coming back down to earth with them at the same speed. If you go in silence or you go in yelling or whatever it is, you're not at the same level. You're not matching them. And it's incongruous. You see it with great bouncers in the door, the doormen in clubs and pubs and stuff like that. They meet somebody who's kind of aggressive or whatever, they'll say, "Hey guys, come on, let's bring it all the way back down to wherever it goes." Right? The really talented ones, that's how they deal with it. They match it, they pace it, and then they lead it to a sunlit upland somewhere. It's a lovely. I like that. I really like that. The
yeah.
meta statement, the matching piece, really, really good.
Well, this actually goes into the check-in, and that I would really say that one of the processes also this check-in concept to see if your person who's speaking is kind of done. Here's an interesting comment that we like to when you're with your friends, okay, you'll notice the volume, just like you had mentioned, volume gets louder and louder and louder and louder, almost to the point where no one can hear each other, and you're competing for space. If you're at the pub and you're with your friends, or if you're at a party, or if you had a wedding, or if you had a conference, okay, and you're with a group, everyone's talking as like it's a response, okay? It's like a ping pong match, okay? When in reality, the idea, the goal is to try to get that person to go deeper from the response mode, because we are in a response mode society. Okay, if I say something to you in terms of like, your story, and you respond right back to me, I have not really dug deeper. So what I like to do is do a check-in, and that check-in is the reflection part. So we mentioned again pausing. We talked about maybe the reflection, like sounds like, okay, that you are trying to accomplish this at work. It sounds like that you have something going on at home. Tell me more. So there's a couple great tips. Tell me more. Help me understand. Share with me a little bit, to get a little bit deeper into this. I'd like to hear a little bit. What else? Those four simple little things will help. The person says, well, not only is it home, but I'm finding some things at work. Really, why, how is that happening? Open-ended questions. Here's another one. We all know this. Great leaders on this call are listening. We know that we've been trained with open-ended, and yet we go back to closed-end in our practical application. Okay, yes, no's. And just going back to tell me, or how does that work, or where do you find that, or why, the big why. Remember, everyone's in the why now, okay? Why does that work? You will let them actually empty their bucket. And when you let them empty their bucket, you go into a whole new division of empathy, where you are getting their feelings, how they are feeling, what's important to them, how they perceive things. And once you have them in the empathy line, at the end, when they're done, you can say, okay, is there anything else? And then you respond. So what we're doing really from a leadership standpoint is we're pushing the response mode down later in the conversation versus right at the beginning. And that changes, it's a game changer. I got a great review. By the way, the book, okay, okay, Better Listening, yes, it's the book, okay, but I got a review. And by the way, when you get a review, it's cool, right? But a guy says, hey, you know what, I got some sales managers, I did the book and it helped. That's not a good review. My good review was a CEO flying home, writes and says, Stan, I was reading your book, quick read, really good, brushed off some old habits and got some really good ideas, but that's not my review. I get home, I'm sitting at the kitchen table with my daughter. My daughter had a bad day. She starts talking about it and I'm about to jump in and give, parental pontification. Okay, that was the word.
I love it.
When I stopped, he's typing, I paused, I asked her, hey, tell me a little bit more. Help me understand what's going on with that friend situation. And after 15, 20 minutes of the process that he just learned, the daughter gets up, hugs the father, and says, Dad, thank you for finally listening to me. So it's powerful, just the few little tweaks that you can do to make a huge difference when you're in a conversation. And as a result, in this situation, you can see that it made the world of difference.
My mum is visiting down from Scotland. She came down a few hours ago to look after my kids for the weekend. And she has a wonderful saying. She says, never underestimate the power of one conversation to change the course of your life. And I think
Wow.
if you respect a conversation is between two people. It's not a broadcast. It's exactly as you say, Stan. It's where you are listening and you're digging in and you're letting the other person, you're not listening, you're helping them feel heard. Because I listen, but you feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I love this whole concept so much. I love these tips. Okay, I want more, Stan. Feed me.
Yeah, well, no, I'll share something that it was not even in the book, and I just heard from someone else, and I'm incorporating it right away. We need to have the courage to be a better listener. We need to change the narrative on how we run our conversations, and that's in the book. We need to have more respect and consideration of others, even in a divisive world, a crazy political times, a tough cultural times, a challenging world event times. We need to know that even though each side will probably not change their opinion, and they're ready to vent their opinion, that it's also important to let others share their thoughts. And although we may not agree or believe or even want to hear, it sometimes means the difference of keeping a friend, a family member, a partner, a spouse, a child. There are so many conversations going on where each side is at opposite ends and they're dug in. And when they have conversations, they're forgetting the basics of having the courage, the consideration, and the respect to let others share and empty their buckets so that we have a more meaningful conversation and we maintain the peace. And that's what I would share today with both your personal relationship situations and your leaders. In the leadership classes and Paul and yours as well, a lot of times we'll have a segment or a nugget in listening, right? So
Yep.
tell me a quick idea. What do you try to accomplish in your listening areas of your area?
Well, I cover the techniques, and it is the don'ts and the do's. So the don'ts are don't wait for your turn to speak, don't try to show off, don't steal their thunder. Oh, that happened to me too, except better or worse. And then I talk about pausing as you did, little encouragements. Uh-huh, yeah, really? I see. And then mirroring things back, labeling, ah, you sounds frustrating, paraphrasing, and then summarizing. So these are the steps that I go through. But these are just the tools. I mean, what I'm hearing from you is it's the foundations of conversation.
The foundations are, and again, I love the encouragement in your tactics and in your education is so crucial. We have active listening, so all of us are used to the active, leaning forward, good eye contact, saying aha, encouragement. Active listening is still crucial because it shows that you are engaged and that you are in. Now, one problem in our society today, right, is distractions. So it's not just the phone, not just the computer, the bings, the tweaks, okay? That's we know those are distractions. And by the way, here's a great one for your leaders. When you get into a conversation, into a meeting, and you have to take a phone call, let the group know. I may have to take a phone call. I may have to be interrupted. I just want you to know, as opposed to when your phone rings and you feel embarrassed and you hide it underneath, your seat because, oh my gosh, I'm in a meeting and my phone went off. That's not true today because there are emergencies, there are situations, there are important things. But let your audience know, okay, that you may have to. Okay. But distractions are as simple as the TV, right? Football, NFL football, by the way, our football, right? American football. We just started 2 weeks ago. Okay. Even though the Bears are not doing that great in Chicago, but we're okay. All right. But distractions, a person may have a conversation and they're looking at the TV while the conversation's going on. So distracting and so disrespectful. You're at a wedding or a party or a conference. Someone comes up to you, you say hi, and all of a sudden you start turning around and you're wandering somewhere else. You're not giving them the time. Here's the thing. Even if you give a person 30 seconds of 100% focus, it will make their day. You make one compliment to someone, you give one positive feedback to someone. It only takes 5 or 10 seconds, okay, and it will change a person's day. So active listening is important. Reflective listening, like you just said, you're paraphrasing, right? You're clarifying. That's the reflective listening part. So you have active and reflective going on at the same time. But here's what we're going to add today. Add empathy. Add empathy into your conversations. So before we get to solution or response or solving people's problems or telling people what to do, we want to make sure that we're understanding. We want to make sure that it's okay in telling them, hey, this is common. You're not the only person going through this. I've been through that before. It sounds like what you're saying, okay, is really crucial to this project or to this relationship. Tell me more a little bit because that's important. I want to hear a little bit more. And they will. They'll empty. And now you've added empathy with active and reflective listening for a concept called total listening. And that will make you a better listener.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right. You're the expert. I'm going to throw you a challenge. Okay? On the spot. When you're meeting somebody and you're face to face with them, I like making sure that my toes are pointing towards them, I don't want to
I'm
stand
writing that
against them.
down. I like that. I've never
But
done
I want to
that.
make sure, because if I physically point my toes towards the other person, I am engaged physically with them. Okay? I can lean towards them. I can use my body language, whether it's intentional or not. But like we are today, we are 4,500 miles apart. How do I signal in a remote or a hybrid environment? What are the tools I can use to do this at 3,000 miles distance?
So when you say how can I show, help me understand that a little bit more before I
But
answer.
yeah, so I mean, I find there's a couple of things that I think are quite useful,
Hmm.
but it's so challenging to really build a good relationship and to show someone that
Oh,
you're
I
really
see.
listening when you're on a video call, you know?
Okay, I
So I
see.
mean, you start off. There's a lovely easy one, which I'm sure you'll know, which is basically
Hmm.
you wave. Just wave to say,
Hmm.
"Hey, Stan, good to see you." Because when we wave to people or we shake hands, it's an ancient mind thing which says, "My hands are empty of weapons.
Hmm.
I'm greeting you with an empty, peaceful hand. All hail." here we are. This is us. And then, but how do we do this remotely? How do we
So,
advance this?
yeah. So this is a challenge because remote technology, Zoom, okay, was forced upon us
Yeah.
on COVID. Okay, it was not created for us; it was forced upon, and now we accept it, and now we use it. And for corporations, it saves sometimes money for efficiencies. Here's a couple things that may work. Okay, number one, when we hopped on, I noticed, and you pointed, I loved the two flags. So if you lean over and you're there it is.
There we are.
So I am in Chicago and you are in England. And I thought, how cool is that? And finding out. So one thing is to compliment. You want to compliment the background of the person be in your conversation. Hey, before we start, oh my gosh, I noticed like that. Love it. Like, have you been to the States? And and compliment them on something they have in their background, unless they have an artificial background. Okay. And then you have to compliment them on something that you know them from your research. The second thing is find commonality. Find a commonality, because a commonality brings a person closer, whether it's in person or 3,000 miles away. So if we talk and we find out that you have a relationship with someone that's part of the States and I'm in the States, we have a commonality. If there's a children's situation, I'm in a rock band, and you said, "Oh, really?" And I said, "Hey, I play Stones in my second half." He goes, "You play the Stones, really? Who else do you play?" I may have a common. And by the way, look, Paul, you're smiling. Okay,
Totally.
you're smiling because I'm gonna try to attach, okay, some things that are also fine. Talk about them. Ask them, and this is a great one. When they say something, and you're again 3,000 miles away, don't hijack. Don't take over. Don't compete. That's another one. Great one for good leaders. Good leaders compete on conversations. Great leaders don't have to compete. Okay, because they have the confidence to adhere to and to strengthen their listeners, their employers, their people that are in projects. So those three things, one, find commonality. Two, compliment. Three, dig in deeper. Let them share a little bit more. Like, here's the thing. I didn't understand what you were saying when you said 3,000 miles.
Mm.
But then your second statement to me was like, I want to bring the relationship closer. I want it to be more meaningful. I want to have the two of us, interact and feel okay, cohesive. Okay, that helped me understand, and that led me toward the three areas of things. So I would not know that had I not asked the follow up. So that's a great tip. Also, don't respond so quickly. Clarify. Ask them to share a little bit more. Okay, on that. Here's a great one. I'll give you can I share a golden ticket question for all of your business
Please.
owners that are listening or your leaders? Here's a great, this is it's the golden ticket question. And that is, when you are sitting down in a project to start, or you're interviewing for a job, or you are about to win a contract or a project, whether it's a company, whether it's your church or your sports association with it, whatever that you're on, anything you're involved in, and you're about to get a project, a great question to ask is, okay, before we move forward, what is most important to you with regard to the accomplishment of this project? Meaning not me who I'm interviewing, you're interviewing me, or not your previous person that you had that now you're looking for someone else, but just moving forward, what is most important to you with regards to a relationship with working with someone like myself? Okay, that question. They will answer. So let me ask you this. On your podcast, when you're interviewing people, what is most important to you, Paul? When you're in a conversation, what are you trying to accomplish? What's most important to you with regards to a relationship with a person who's on your podcast?
I
Couple
want
things.
I want to extract a value. If I can come away with one valuable message for my listeners from one conversation, I've done a good job. My secondary one is I want my interlocutor, the person that I'm interviewing, to feel like they've been heard.
Oh, I love that one. All right. So interesting is, look at this. I wrote those two down because when you write it down, you're showing the person that it's important, as opposed to just like, sure,
I like that.
The second thing is, not only am I writing it down, but when you said when you want to extract because you want it to be valuable, okay, or when you want that person to feel that heard, help me understand that. Like, when you say being heard, that's a big area. And then I would ask you, help me understand that more. And
Yeah.
I would go in, I would say, and you would tell me, well, I want them to share their ideas. I want to share so I can get that valuable one nugget, you know? But so if you are asking what's most important, and then you ask a follow-up, tell me more, okay? And then at the end, you look and say, is there anything else that's important to you? Here's the key. The takeaway is this. When you come back with your proposal or you come back with your proposition, you will have these two or three things as the lead of your meeting for a reason of: one, they know you heard them. Two, they shared what was most important to them, not to us, not to you or I. And it will close more business, and it will also help leaders take it to the next level. That one golden ticket question.
Do you know what? I think we've done all we can possibly hope to do. Stan, where can we find you when we need you?
Well, if you have a chance, okay, first of all, it's a quick read. It's called Better Listening. So it's not Harry Potter.
On its way. It's on its way to me right now. I can't wait to receive it.
Yes, you can check it out. You know, it's easy. Amazon, really simple. BetterListeningBook.com. Okay, you can go on Amazon, just look up Better Listening, Stan Slovin. It will pop up. If you do get it, if any of your readers get it, okay, or if any of your listeners have a chance to read it, I'd love to hear feedback in terms of any nuggets at all, anyone. And most importantly, I would leave it with that better listening is just to help you have really a more impact, not just professionally, but personally. And I hope that your listeners caught a couple good tips today. And I really enjoyed truly being on the podcast. Thank you for having me.
Stan Slovin, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.